Hello, today we're going to talk about the TH1000. This video will have the disassembly and assembly process of this unit. Alright, so it's very simple. I want you guys to feel very comfortable that if you did get any damage to this unit, you guys are perfectly capable of repairing it. So say we had someone to come along and decide just to break this plastic indicator. Maybe you hang on it and snap it off. We want to walk you through that process of how to service this and how to easily replace it so you can get it back up and running. Okay, it's a very simple unit, easy to service, so we're going to walk you through that entire process today. So we have a completely assembled unit today, how you purchased it. Okay, we're going to talk about the parts real quick as it's assembled. Okay, so these are mounting bolts. We have two mounting bolts. We have nuts right here on each side. Those nuts hold the mounting bolts in place. So we want those nuts never to come loose. So what we do is we put red Loctite on those nuts out of the factory to make sure those nuts do not come loose. On the other side, we have a flat bolt with a square notch on the bottom of the head of the bolt. That square notch fits into a square hole on the aluminum channel. That square hole and square notch lock together to allow you to put the nut on. So it's important that you pull the bolt. If you ever have to take this loose for any reason, which I don't think you should have to, but if you ever do, that square bolt, pull on it and use that nut and tighten it in place. You want to make sure that flathead bolt stays flat against the aluminum extrusion here. So those are mounting bolts. We call these aluminum extrusion. This is a three-piece assembly here. Slides up and down. We'll talk about that. This here is called a strike bar. The benefit of a strike bar is as these parts come around, if the strike bar was not there, this plastic would contact the metal. By itself, that's fine, but if the metal is sliding up and down, it will catch the edge of this and break it. So the strike bar creates a distance, a tolerance here, a safe distance between the moving parts so nothing gets damaged. So that's called the strike bar, this black bar in here. Okay, we have the same part, this bar, in through the indicators in here as well. So that rod is inside of here, so these parts swing around on that rod. So these plastic parts are called indicators. They indicate the position you jump. Alright, so pretty straightforward. So what we have up top here and on bottom is an L-shaped bracket. That bracket I call indicator bracket. There you have two holes in the top of it and two holes in the bottom that hold the rods in place. Alright, so it's simply a bolt that goes into a threaded rod. You take the bolt out, then you disassemble everything. And it's straightforward. And then up top, the very top, are three detents. There's two holes in the very top and then one in the center. Those are spring-loaded ball detents. When we take it apart, we'll talk you through that as well. So those are all the parts and the terminology we will use here. I want you to feel comfortable with that. So, mounting bolts, aluminum extrusions, strike bar, indicators, and your nuts and bolts along with the detents up top. So that's our terminology we'll use. Alright, so let's get into the disassembly process. Okay? Alright, so let's start the disassembly process. Yeah, get to right, no. Alright, so let's go ahead. So 11mm wrenches, we'll put them on each side. So what we're going to do first is take off the bolts on both sides of the indicators. So go ahead and put on one side, right on the other side. When you have yours, they will have Loctite on both sides. So it'll be a little tighter than this. This is right from the manufacturer. I do a 100% quality inspection on them and put Loctite on this first batch. Future batches will come from the manufacturer with Loctite. We had some of them at customer sites that were loosening up after many cycles. So we felt the need to put Loctite on there, and I'll walk you through the reason for that. The main reason for Loctite is the vibration that this device sees as people hit it and slap it. It can loosen up the hardware. that's in place to hold things in place. So anyways, we put Loctite on there to make sure that the fasteners stay in place. I'll also go ahead and undo the bolts on the strike bar. So we'll go ahead and loosen that as well. And that we don't have to take completely off. We just want to loosen it up so it's not clamping the indicator bracket. So we'll just leave that somewhat loose. And we'll go ahead and take this indicator, the indicator assembly off. So you have a threaded rod that goes through, I'll show you before I actually do it. It goes through the indicator bracket. So what we want to do is just push the rod through there, through that hole, and then pull it out the other side a little bit. And that will get it to come loose. So you may need to tap it. So if that's the case, if you want to tap it, put the bolt back in place a little bit and give it a little nudge to break it loose. It won't take much to get it. I'll just go ahead and give it a love tap with a bigger hammer. Alright, so now that's loose. So I'll show you what I did real quick. So here's some of the hardware we'll show you here in a second. Alright, and then there'll be a washer. Alright, so I'm going to hold it in place with my hand. So what I did is I made the rod come through the indicator bracket a little bit more on this end. So that allowed it to free up on this end. Alright, so now what we'll do is go ahead and take these indicators off and this rod off. What I don't like is that you can take this bottom indicator off and then hold the rod and take this other bolt off on the top end, and you can pull the whole assembly off. Okay, so sometimes it's in there a little tight, sometimes you can hold it and it'll break itself loose, sometimes it's really tight and we'll have to grab a wrench to do that. In this case we'll have to grab a wrench and put a wrench on. No, it came loose. Alright, so good. Sometimes it's depending on how much clamp force we have, you have to hold the one end of the rod while you take the bolt off the other end of the rod. So in this case we were able to do it by hand, which is great. Alright, so I got the other bolt washer and I just slid the rod back off. So on this end, before I take it apart, you have a spring washer and a regular washer. So spring washer and a regular washer. So the spring washers helps create a little bit additional clamping force to hold the assembly in place. So we'll go ahead and set all the hardware on that side. So this is the rod and indicators. So we'll set this aside real quick and we'll disassemble the rest of it. Alright, so now we have the three-piece extrusion telescopic. So what we'll do is take the detents off first, and I'll show you how easily this slides without the detents on there. So the three detents, so we'll quickly just use the Allen wrench and go ahead and take those off. You can see it's a little loose in here, and that's the tolerance between the threads on the detents and the threads on the aluminum. So what you want to do is take up some of that play with Teflon tape. And when we assemble it back together, we will put Teflon tape on these, and that will prevent it from loosening up over time. So that was the one I took out of the middle one. It's a little longer than the rest of them. Spring-loaded ball in here. Close-ups on that. We'll go ahead and just slide this out a little bit to get that to break loose. So what I'm doing is just getting this detent out of here. You have to just line up the holes a little bit. So same deal. You can tell it's a little, I had that one almost out, so that was probably a bad example. Let me do this one. So you can tell it's a little loose in here. We don't want that because what that does is it loosens up as you cycle it, and it doesn't hold well. So we want to take that slop up with Teflon tape. Alright, so we'll go ahead and set these aside. So now what I want to show you is how easily this will slide up and down without detents. So now if I don't hold it, it just falls. So without the detents, this assembly is full of, it can slide up and down real easy. And it slides really smooth. And this is, if you ever have a problem with this sliding, take the detents out and see if it slides. If it slides with no effort, no resistance, then your three-piece extrusion slide is working really well. Okay, so the problem is somewhere else. But right now, with no detents, everything slides up and down as intended.